In this video lesson, we'll explore life during wartime, specifically the medical care of soldiers and prison camps. The soldiers suffered greatly during the Civil War. Their rations included hardtack, beans, bacon fat, and if they were lucky, a few bones from which to suck the marrow. They had ticks, lice, dysentery, and diarrhea on a regular basis due to very poor hygiene. A doctor's kit looked more like it would be useful in an episode of Home Makeover. You can see here that the tools that the doctors used in order to treat the soldiers very much look like tools you would find in your garage. Body wounds were ignored and the person was left to die. Good surgeons could remove a limb in under 1 minute. They usually used ether to sedate the patient as best they could. If you look closely in this picture, you'll see that this is actually a pile of limbs. There were many soldiers that survived the Civil War, but were amputees as a result of their injuries. Scalpels, saws, and pliers were the doctor's main tools. Many of them can be seen here. Once a soldier received care, the worst was yet to come in a lot of cases. People did not really know about germs and bacteria. Doctors and nurses regularly examined wounds without washing their hands in between patients. Gangrene, staph infections, and other infections passed from man to man very, very easily. Surgery was normally done outdoors, and there's a picture that can be seen here of a man who is having surgery. And you can see that it's partially in, partially outside of the tent. When it came to medical care, there will be some great improvements. But for every soldier that died on the battlefield, 2 more died in the wartime hospitals. Women served the military as nurses. Clara Barton, who is seen here, is actually the founder of the American Red Cross, and Sally Tompkins also helped improve medical care by being able to establish procedures for medical care on the battlefield. Many men did not think it was appropriate for women to see them in such poor condition. So as a result, Dorothea Dix, who was actively helping with the medical care with the soldiers, required that all of her nurses be plain looking and be at least 30 years old. When it came to prisoners, the care of the prisoners was very, very difficult. Until the Union began using African American soldiers, both sides had regularly exchanged soldiers rather than keep them in camps. Once the Confederacy refused to return the African American soldiers, the North stopped the exchange program, and neither side was actually equipped to be able to keep thousands of prisoners. Both sides treated their captives terribly. Fort Delaware and Elmira prisons in the North and Libby and Anderson prisons in the South saw a mortality rate over 25%, which means 25% of the soldiers that went there did not survive. There was very poor nutrition, poor hygiene, which led to scurvy, dysentery, and other fatal diseases. The Union camp at Point Lookout, Maryland, was actually located right here at Maryland, was built to hold 10,000. It had almost 50,000 Confederate troops, and 4,000 of them did not survive. Andersonville Prison in Georgia was actually the worst prison that there was during the Civil War. A man named Henry Wirz was placed in charge of the camp at Andersonville. Again, it was built to hold only 10,000, but eventually had over 33,000 prisoners. Their only water was a stream which ran through where the horses grazed, and it was filled with horse manure. this is actually a picture of what the prison camp looked like in Andersonville Prison. You can see that it's all tents, and there is a field there. There's no actually built structures to be able to protect the prisoners. There were no buildings to house prisoners, only tents and lean-tos. Guards, some of them as young as 12, surrounded the camp on watchtowers. Anyone who got near the fence basically was shot immediately, and they called the area near the fence the dead zone because of that. Although the camp was operational for less than a year, over 12,000 men died at Andersonville. Survivors were transferred from the camp to other prison camps in the South. This is a mass grave where they used to bury bodies of the prisoners and of soldiers that didn't survive on the battlefield. This is a picture of a man who was actually brought out of Andersonville Prison. You can certainly see that he is in a very, very poor state of nutrition, and he probably did not survive very long after this picture was taken. The commandant, Henry Wirz, was tried for war crimes in 1865 because of the condition of the prisoners coming out of Andersonville. The North really wanted him to provide information about General Lee and President Davis, but he refused to do that. Henry Wirz was hung in Washington, D.C., actually right outside the Capitol building. You can see the gallows here and the Capitol building in the background. After his death, he was treated as a martyr in the South. We'll discuss the prisons and the effect they had on their prisoners and the rest of the experience of the soldiers during the Civil War more in depth in our classroom lessons.